The young security guard had no idea who the older man standing before him was. To him, Clint Eastwood was just another elderly stranger trying to sneak onto a restricted movie set. With a firm voice, he blocked Clint's path, demanding to see a pass. But as the tension grew, something unexpected happened. Crew members rushed forward, their faces filled with shock and panic. "Mr. Eastwood, we're so sorry." The guard's stomach dropped as realization hit him. He had just denied entry to the director of the very movie being filmed. What happened next was something he would never forget, a lesson in humility, respect, and the quiet authority of a true Hollywood legend. Clint Eastwood arrived at the entrance of the movie set, dressed in his usual understated manner jeans, a simple button-up shirt, and a weathered cowboy hat shading his eyes. The years had graced him with a rugged dignity, but to someone unfamiliar with his legacy, he might have seemed like just another elderly man wandering where he didn't belong. The security guard stationed at the entrance was a young man in his late 20s, new to the job and eager to prove himself. He glanced up from his phone as Clint approached, barely paying attention. "Excuse me, sir, this is a private set," the guard said, holding up a hand to stop Clint from walking any further. Clint tilted his head slightly, a half-smile forming at the corner of his lips. "I know," he said calmly. "I'm supposed to be here." The guard looked him up and down, unimpressed. "I don't think so. You got a pass?" Clint reached into his pocket, but before he could pull anything out, the guard shook his head. "Listen, I don't know who you are, but we don't let random people walk onto the set. If you don't have a pass, you need to leave." There was no hostility in the guard's voice, just impatience. It was clear he saw Clint as an old man who had probably wandered in, maybe hoping to get a glimpse of a famous actor or two. Clint chuckled softly. "Son, do you know what movie this is?" The guard sighed. "Yeah, some Western film. Look, sir, I don't have time for this." Clint nodded, his hands slipping into his pockets. He had encountered moments like this before. It was part of the strange reality of Hollywood fame could be fleeting, even when you were a legend. "Right," Clint said, taking a step back. "Maybe you should ask someone." The guard shook his head. "Sir, I don't need to ask anyone. You don't have a pass. You're not getting in." Just then, a commotion broke out near the trailers. A group of production assistants rushed toward the entrance, murmuring frantically among themselves. One of them, a middle-aged woman with a headset and a clipboard, spotted Clint and immediately paled. "Oh my God," she whispered, before sprinting forward. "Mr. Eastwood." The guard's eyes widened in confusion. The woman reached Clint, her expression a mix of horror and apology. "Mr. Eastwood, I am so sorry about this. No one informed us you'd be arriving early." The guard blinked. "Wait, what?" Clint smirked, but said nothing. The woman turned to the guard, her voice sharp now. "Do you have any idea who this is?" The guard stammered, suddenly feeling the weight of the moment. "This is Clint Eastwood," the woman said. "He's not just an actor, he's the director of this movie." Silence fell between them. The guard felt his stomach drop. He had just refused entry to one of the most legendary figures in Hollywood, a man whose name alone could command the industry. Clint watched the young man's face, waiting to see how he would react. The guard swallowed hard, his face turning red. "Mr. Eastwood, I had no idea. I'm so sorry," he stammered. "I was just following protocol." Clint nodded, finally stepping forward again. "It's all right, kid," he said, his voice even. "You did your job." The guard exhaled in relief. Clint leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough for the young man to hear. "But next time," he said with a twinkle of amusement in his eye, "maybe don't be so quick to turn an old man away." The guard laughed nervously, still embarrassed but grateful that Clint wasn't angry. As Clint finally entered the set, the crew parted for him, showing their respect. The guard watched as Clint greeted the actors, spoke to the cinematographer, and took his place behind the camera like he had done so many times before. For the rest of the day, the young security guard kept replaying the moment in his mind. He had denied access to Clint Eastwood. The Clint Eastwood. And yet, instead of anger or arrogance, Clint had met him with patience, humility, and a quiet authority that only made his legend even greater. As the guard stood at his post, watching the cast and crew move about, he couldn't help but feel a mix of embarrassment and admiration. He had expected a powerful Hollywood director to lash out, to call for his removal, or to at least berate him for not knowing who he was. But Clint Eastwood had done none of that. Instead, he had simply nodded, understanding that the guard was just doing his job. After the initial shock of his mistake, the guard, whose name was Jake, found himself stealing glances toward where Clint was now standing, speaking with his crew. The legendary actor and director seemed completely unfazed by what had happened, as if it was just another moment in his day, not even worth a second thought. But for Jake, it was a defining moment, one that would stay with him forever. During his break, one of the crew members approached Jake and chuckled, clapping him on the back. "Man, you've got guts." Not a lot of people would stand their ground against Clint Eastwood. Jake sighed. "I was just doing my job, but I feel like an idiot. I should have recognized him." "Don't beat yourself up," the crew member replied. "Clint respects people who take their jobs seriously. That's why he didn't get mad. He's seen it all, and he values hard work. That's just the kind of guy he is." Later in the day, as Jake was finishing up his shift, he noticed Clint Eastwood walking toward him. His heart pounded. Was Clint about to call him out? Was he still upset? But as Clint stopped in front of him, he simply offered a small smile. "You handled yourself well back there," Clint said in his iconic, gravelly voice. Not many people have the guts to do their job right, even when they don't know who they're up against. Jake swallowed hard. I was just trying to follow protocol, sir." Clint nodded. "Good. Always stick to what you believe is right. That's how you earn respect." Then, to Jake's utter disbelief, Clint reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. "If you're ever interested in working security for my sets in the future, give this number a call." Jake stared at the card, unable to believe what had just happened. The same man he had unknowingly turned away was now offering him a potential career opportunity. He looked up, eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Eastwood," Jake said sincerely. Clint gave him a small nod and walked away, leaving Jake standing there, stunned. That night, as he drove home, Jake thought about everything that had happened. He had started his day feeling like a nobody, just another security guard on a set. But by the end of it, he had been reminded that respect is earned not through fame or power, but through character, integrity, and the ability to stand firm even in the face of a Hollywood legend. By the end of the shoot, the guard made sure to do his research, watching Clint's films, learning about his legacy, and understanding just how lucky he was to have met the man himself. And though the experience had left him embarrassed, it also gave him a story he would tell for the rest of his life, the day he almost kicked Clint Eastwood off his own movie set